Thank you so much for your kind presentation, Dr. King, Dr. Moon, I'm sorry. Friends, I really appreciate the opportunity of meeting all of you and listening to our learned friends from the private sector in this part of the world, which is not totally unfamiliar to me. In one of my previous incarnations, I headed a foundation that worked with institutions all over the world, and especially in Asia Pacific, and in this region, and Latin America, and Africa, and all the rest. I have been asked to speak to you about entrepreneurship in the Latin American context. Let me remind us that Latin America is as diverse as Asia. You have huge countries like Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, medium-sized countries like Colombia, Peru, Venezuela, Chile, smaller countries like Paraguay, Uruguay, Central American countries, Caribbean countries. My country, Panama, is one of them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have Panama apply to ASEAN after all the wonderful things I have heard. Let me go to basics. There's a common denominator, really, around the world about entrepreneurs as innovators, as leaders, as we have just witnessed with our previous speakers, that not only innovate in business, but innovate in society for the good of society in a variety of ways. Let me go to basics. Economic development in a market or market-oriented economy is based on the role and the work of entrepreneurs. They are the stars of a market economy or a market-oriented economy, led by a private sector in its dynamism to achieve growth and other socially worthy goals. Economic development, as we know, combines physical investments of a whole variety of things, human capital, most important, and technology. And all of this is combined by entrepreneurs to work with their firms of production within an institutional framework made up by laws and regulations and policies in each one of our countries. That's the context in which entrepreneurs work. And they work, whether they are large businessmen, entrepreneurs, medium-sized, small one, formal, informal, within their economies. In the Latin American context, we have a high level of participation in entrepreneurial activities, but most of them, 91% of them, of the employers, run firms of 10 or less employees. So they tend to be small corporations by and large. 75% of all the participants in the entrepreneurial world are in effect called micro-enterprises. Micro-enterprises, formal, informal, working outside the law or within the legal system. And they have the potential to grow, but they face several obstacles that fortunately are being recognized more and more in all the Latin American countries and are being resolved in a variety of ways. And I will mention some of them. The entrepreneurs, the micro-enterprises, which are the majority, employing 40% of all the people in their economies, face problems of access to credit, most of all, access to markets, access to technology, access to information. And that needs to be provided to help them in a more equal society that opens opportunities for all. And we have to evolve from that kind of a situation over decades to create more dynamic, fully entrepreneurial economic situations within market economies in the Latin American context. Let me give you a few examples of the obstacles that they face to grow faster and to grow better, to access to credit. Many of them haven't registered formally their properties, and consequently they cannot be offered as guarantee to private banks that offer credit to them. There are public institutions that offer credit to them, but they are so small in their financial capacity that it doesn't cover most of what is needed by these small enterprises all over the countries. And consequently, the role of private banking is very important to finance and offer credit. But as we know, private banks require guarantees for the loans that they provide. And if they have registered their properties, if they are real estate properties, they can offer them as guarantees. But one problem that has existed and is being resolved is what is called mobile property. That is a sewing machine or another machine to produce cheese or to produce building blocks is not accepted within the law for banks to take them as guarantees for the loans that they provide. So in many of the countries, a new legislation is emerging to solve that problem, to, in effect, support legally the idea that mobile property can be offered and accepted as guarantees by the banks to provide the credit needed by these small companies and these small entrepreneurs. So these two issues, the registration of property legally so it can be taken as guarantee, and the inclusion of mobile property to be used as guarantee for loans, is beginning to speed up the availability of credit, which is the main limiting factor to so many of the small entrepreneurs that make up, as I said before, the very large majority of entrepreneurial activity in the countries. And that is important for philosophical reasons and for development reasons, because a market economy that does not permit the full inclusion of all the people to participate and to enjoy using their national entrepreneurial capacity will fail in the long run. So in order to create and strengthen democracy, in order to create more human development, in order to create more social justice, if you want to call it that, within that kind of a democratic market economy or market-oriented context, you have to make sure that the legal system and the workings and operations permit and allow the participation of all these people in the process. And the countries are becoming more and more aware of that situation and are including the kinds of policies for which I have given examples: the registration of properties, the use of mobile properties to guarantees for banking credit, and technical assistance to go along with the credit so that they can improve the productive systems with better knowledge and better experience. So in the midst of those problems, there is hope through concrete actions that are being taken by most countries. The final element I want to mention is that most people have some kind of entrepreneurial capacity, but it can be fostered through the educational process. Unfortunately, too, the educational systems, certainly the private schools and in increasing ways the public schools, are beginning to incorporate in their teaching processes the innovation as something to be valued as a good, to be recognized for the young people, for the students, not just learning a whole bunch of information, but being able to develop their talents and to apply their talents to achieve goals and to achieve a purpose. And that opens an opportunity for the young people that make the largest amount of the population of the Latin American countries, because we are a young continent, to prepare over the next 10, 12 years, having developed from their formative years the capacities to be innovators, to explore new things, new niches for production, new niches for scientific discoveries. So these are the essential elements, I think, in our region and everywhere else in the world that have to be taken into account to develop the natural innate capacity of entrepreneurial abilities on our populations and can be fostered through these examples I have given. I give you one more to finish. Populations are many times dispersed in a wide area in the country, and there are not bank offices available to them. They have to go 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers or even more to go to bank office to get a credit or to pay their credit or to get their money. And that is also being recognized by a variety of systems by which the banks are using a drugstore or a market store in little towns where it is not profitable for them to set up an office, where they can put one official of that bank to take care of the banking accounts of all these small entrepreneurs in all these towns through the area. I give you an example in Brazil, in the Amazon River, the largest river in the world. They have a huge boat that goes up and down the Amazon where the banks operate, stopping town by town to take care of the credit of all those small entrepreneurs in the towns along the Amazon River. And there are many such examples throughout the region, in Peru, in Paraguay, in Chile, that are being developed. So those are the issues. That's our interpretation of entrepreneurial capacity. Those have been the problems, and those are some of the solutions that are being implemented to help along the development of entrepreneurial capacity of all the population. Thank you very much.